Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for When Unfettered. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We're very pleased to be joined by the director of this film, Derek Franzese. Derek is joining us from Austin, Texas today. Hello, Derek, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Eric.
It's so good to have you. Now, you are really Derek. You're not an AI, is that
I
correct?
am not an AI. Real
Okay,
human
just
here.
checking, just to make sure that you are, but we know that as well too. What an interesting concept, interesting film. What inspired you to do a film of this nature?
Well, I had a friend who I met recently who had always really loved film, and he was working for an AI company. And we sat down a bunch and we're talking, and he wanted to make a film and that kind of talked about AI a little bit. And I was like, well, let's do something that maybe shows the other side of AI. We're all very scared of it, but maybe AI might have some kind of help, might be able to do something. And then I kind of took it and ran with the idea of like maybe the generative learning is more about love than taking people's jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And then I really just kind of ran with like the emotional aspects of, what if this being learned about love and learned about what it is to be human by kind of befriending and meeting what I kind of look at as the people that our society does not give the amount of respect to that I feel that they should, whether it's people like a child with cerebral palsy, an amputee, whatever, a stray dog, the elderly, just anything of that nature. And I thought it'd be a really interesting concept to show that we're not learning enough about humanity through these wonderful, wonderful people in the world. And I just kind of went with it. And that was the concept, essentially.
And the great concept that you had, like you mentioned like the dog and the children, with special abilities and so forth, how they connected with the AI and the human didn't. So that's really interesting. Talk a little bit about that, how like average human being couldn't connect with the AI, but others could.
Well, I mean, the easiest one to talk about is the dog, like it's very like as a dog, we kind of look at dogs and we're like, oh, they have this innate sense of goodness in other animals or goodness in other humans. And so the dog could connect with that this thing was trying to be something. It was a good thing, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and then I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm like in my own world.
Well, no, just how you decide to make the AI connect with the children with special needs
Oh,
and the dog.
like how did I do it in the film, or what made
No,
me?
just the whole concept of why you wanted, the average
Okay.
human not to connect with the AI, but you had, the
Well,
children connecting.
there was a couple things. I think that children are just more honest than us. Like as we get older, we have this we need to kind of put on a little bit of a facade to try to get ourselves through life so much. And children, I was like, well, children can be so honest and they're so genuine and they're learning. And then I have friends and family members who, whether they're neurodivergent or, have special abilities or special disabilities. And I had been around so many people that I was just like, these people are even more honest and they're just so truthful and they're so genuine. And I wanted to show that there is so much love within these different communities of people. Anybody who's ever really experienced any kind of prejudice is kind of their humanity, I feel, is almost always they connect with others better. It just depends on if you, I don't know, if you live abroad or travel abroad and you get to be around people who are impoverished or whatever it is. I've always found that these people that, my father used to live in Istanbul, and there would be these lovely people around that were always, people would kind of consider them beggars, but I would always talk to them and really try to get to know them. And they were just these wonderful, wonderful people who were doing everything they could to survive in this world that was really just kind of looking down on them in this particular culture at that time. And so that's kind of where this all came from. And I look back at like my family's immigrant past and how I had felt growing up, and it just kind of one thing led to another. And I wanted to show that the AI could connect with beings that were going through things or didn't necessarily belong as much in society.
Interesting. Interesting. That's a great way to approach it. And AI is here to stay. And we do have some resistors, and I feel this film is a little bit of ahead of its time, as AI is going to be part of our future. So congratulations on your forward thinking.
Well, thanks. We'll see.
So let's talk more about the production of this. Tell us just a summary about where did you film and how long did you film? How long and that was and those things.
Sure. We filmed, it was about 3.5 days that we shot. We filmed in Austin, Texas, kind of all over Austin. We've kind of downtown a lot because I really liked the architecture of a lot of the buildings for her to walk by. And then the whole kid scene at the park is it's kind of in this like central area of Austin, but you can kind of see there's this big red building behind it that says Thinkery on it. And that's this kind of, I don't know if it's still around in Cleveland, but when I was growing up, there was a place called COSI. And it was just this big science place, and all these kids would go, and Thinkery is that for Austin. And it was you just go there and it's all these kids and they do all these wonderful events for these kids where they're teaching them science. And so we shot right outside of there. A lot of the park stuff was there. So production was 3.5 days. We shot 2 nights. All of the stuff that was at the house, that was all shot at night. There was a bunch of other stuff, obviously, like the initial cut was, I think, 20 minutes, which is so hard to get into a film festival at that length. And so we had to cut down a bunch of other kind of little scenes, tiny scenes. I wanted her to make friends with the homeless person. There was also, she went to a dog park. Obviously, I'm really into dogs. So we had to cut down a bunch of that stuff. We shot on an Alexa Mini. Yeah. And then the editing process, that took a long time because I work in the film industry as an assistant director. And then 2021, right after when we started gearing back up after COVID, it got so busy. I mean, it was just, we were trying to make up for lost time. So it took so long to edit and then go through the final cuts and then really narrow it down and do all the visual effects stuff afterwards.
That is pretty involved, especially after the pandemic, getting real busy. Your actors, I know you talked a little bit about the children, but what did you find Ash? Is that someone you knew, or did you audition for her role?
So Ashley and I were friends. She was an actor. She was an actor. She is an actor. And her and I met on a set in Austin, I want to say in like 2011. And then she moved to LA and I split my time in LA. So we've been really good friends. And I kind of wrote it when I was writing it. Her name's literally Ashley. So when I was writing it, I was like, I'll just name the AI Ash, because her and I had always wanted to work together. But then I made sure that she auditioned, but we auditioned probably 500 people across from New York to LA. I had a casting director friend, and we just did a bunch of stuff. And by the end of going through all of these people, it was still Ashley. And she had just done so good, so well. And so we just went ahead with her. And then, we'd worked together prior to that, and we'd stayed in touch. So we already had kind of a rapport together. So it made direction really easy. And then the others, the 2 daughters that are at the house, one of them is a dear friend of mine, also met acting. And then the taller one, the one that releases her into the world, essentially, we had maybe met on a set once or twice, but didn't really know each other. And then her audition was so great that it was originally going to be a guy and a girl. And we were just like, no, 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 it's got to be two sisters because we just loved their energy together. So that changed completely. And then everybody else was an audition. I'd met many of them, but everybody auditioned. Nobody, I don't think a single person. Yeah, everybody submitted an audition tape.
Okay, great, great. Yeah, and getting Ashley to do that, you said you didn't have to give her much direction. Because I could tell she got it. She actually, and she did it in such a way in which wasn't what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't fake, but it was
Right.
fake. She didn't
Yeah.
overdo it, if you understand what I mean. And I could tell talk a little bit about the synergy between you and Ashley, as a director and actor.
Um, so, the very first thing we did, well, you're right. Like, first of all, the film doesn't work unless that lead is
Mhm.
good. And there was something about her face and her ability, in my mind, to just kind of be present, but you could kind of see like a little bit of a vapidness behind her until she was kind of ready to experience emotion. But the first thing that we really did to try to get into character was I started looking at like a lot of like physiotherapy type videos about what the perfect walk would be for a human, like because most of us walk wrong, and that's why we are always hurting our knees or our hips, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the very first thing we did. And so she would send me videos, or we would like Zoom, and we would just kind of walk together and really try to push off properly. And I feel like getting into that physical space is one of the easiest things for an actor sometimes, is to get them into their character, because it's so hard. It's not like you're on stage in a play where you have all of this stuff that can kind of really help you get into this world. Sometimes it's just you and a camera.
Mhm.
You're acting off very, very little. So those physical manifestations that we discussed really kind of helped. And then since Ashley and I have known each other for more than 10 years, it was pretty easy for us to be really honest with each other. If she was like, I don't think that's working, or if I would say something, it's so much about directing is about trust, and allowing this kind of space for an actor to really do things that maybe won't work. And you're just like, how did you feel about it? And we could kind of almost bypass that, and we were just kind of on the same page with, let's move on. Like, it's not like this is good, but let's keep going. So
I
there's a
see.
lot of that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's great. And it certainly came across well in the film. I know you said you shot for over 3 days. So, is there anything in the film that did not actually make it into the film?
Yeah, I mean, the dog park didn't make it. There was a lot of the walking, um, because it's a short film, and we had to make it so short. It's kind of like, um there were various little things that she would walk by, or like I wanted to have her hear somebody sing, like her experiencing art was something that I really wanted to. So we used the dance instead, and to kind of imply that art was also something that was really like helping her to understand humanity a little bit more. But yeah, like singing, there was homelessness, and I wanted her to befriend somebody in that regard. And so yeah, that there's various little things that didn't make it, but I knew we were trying to shoot for a certain amount of uh, time allotted in the actual edit. So we didn't shoot a ton of things that didn't ultimately make it into the film.
I understand this film was originally scored and you hired a composer. Tell us a little bit about that process and how much direction did you give the composer for scoring this film?
Good question. It's interesting because the composer, this is the first time I'd ever done like an original score. Like a lot of my other films would be, I would take a song, or yeah, really, I would take a song from either a friend, or like we'd have to license it from somebody else, and I would just kind of add that to it. So I was determined to do this with a composer because it was kind of part of my learning experience, because I was very uncomfortable with the idea of not knowing the music as I was editing. And so I have a friend who has done really, really well as a kind of, he's really gotten to be a pretty big film composer, and like he he composed part of like the movie Inception, and like so he's I originally was like, hey, do you want to do this film? And he really wanted to, but then he's got to make money, and so he would recommend somebody, and then all of a sudden, and I'd listen to so many things, Eric, and all of a sudden this guy from Italy contacted me, and he was like, hey, I saw like a trailer, I saw something, and I just didn't know if you might have somebody yet. And so I listened to some of his music, and I was like, okay. And so he and I zoomed from Italy, and it just started to work out. And I really, it was a lot of what he said to me about like, oh, I understand. He understood like the beats of the film, and like this is where, oh, and maybe we could do something right here. And I was like, oh, you're the first person I've really talked to that understands what the film is about. And so yes, I gave him some direction and a little bit of like inspiration for songs that I had kind of figured out, and then he would send me a few seconds, and I'd be like, that's the right vibe, or maybe not. And then finally I went to Italy because my dad's family was all Italian. So I was like already excited. I was like, oh, I can go to Italy anyway. So he and I met, and in this piazza, like after dinner, we just listened to the initial score. And so there was this kind of, I don't know, it was really nice for me to be in Rome listening amongst a bunch of Italians, and I just started to fall in love with it. And then we tweaked every now and again, but that was kind of how it happened. It was happenstance.
Yeah, it worked out so well because, music should be, add to the film and not notice unless it's intentional, but it's just, really just carrying it along. And you should be pleased. I hope you are
I
with
love it. I love the music. He did a great job.
and the imagery was great also. Tell us a little bit about that last shot, and technically how you composed it and the symbolic meaning behind it.
Okay. So that's an actual location. It's like a newer bridge. It's like a walking bridge, really, in downtown Austin. And I've walked it a few times, and every time I would walk by it, I just would be like, this is such a lovely, lovely little. It's because it's not a big bridge. I mean, it's just this tiny little thing, and I loved the the symmetry of how it was kind of built. And then so we filmed that. We added a few buildings, like maybe two or three, like very, very deep in the background, but ultimately it's a real place. And I really liked the idea of her kind of crossing this I'll call it it's a stream, but crossing into this other world of like she's decided that she's okay now to go out onto her own and to explore whatever this new world is going to bring. And so this idea of crossing over a bridge is a metaphor for that, like whatever the river Styx, whatever. But that was the idea. Although the river Styx would be a negative world, but she's hopefully going into this positive world. But she's also going to experience that prejudice that the mother of the child had. So but she's ready for it now. And so that was this kind of walking into whatever comes next.
And to say, yes, exactly, whatever comes next. And what are you walking into? What's coming next for you?
And oh, Eric, I've been writing a bunch of features. In the submitted to a couple different screenplay competitions, and we placed in some of them. I just wanted to get a little bit of feedback and kind of go from there. I might do another short, but I really, I want to make a feature film and see what comes with that. So trying to get an agent in LA and kind of go from there as far as writing. And like I said, I work in the industry, so next year, especially with these strikes, next year is going to be really crazy. So hopefully they'll be looking for content, and maybe we'll get lucky. Otherwise, I'll probably just make some other short. I've got like 4 scripts. We'll see. Whatever comes next.
Whatever comes next. That's great. Well, I wish you all the best as you cross that bridge to what comes next. And I appreciate you joining us today. And thank you so much for sharing this great film for us.
So much.
Derek Franzese, director of When Unfettered. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about our upcoming film festival, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.